If you planted corn seeds in your garden, would you expect to harvest strawberries? Of course not. The very idea is absurd, almost laughable in its impossibility. Nature never makes that mistake. The laws governing the soil are absolute, unyielding, and eternally consistent. Yet here is the profound tragedy of human existence. In the garden of our lives, we constantly plant seeds of fear, doubt, and poverty, and then we stand there in genuine bewilderment, shocked, truly shocked, when we do not harvest wealth. James Allen, that quiet philosopher who unlocked the secrets of the mind over a century ago, taught a truth so simple it is almost offensive to our complicated excuses. Your bank account is not a lottery. It is not a game of chance where some win and others lose through the cruel randomness of fate. It is a harvest, and if you do not like what you are reaping in your financial fields, you must stop staring at the crop with frustration and start examining with ruthless honesty the seeds you have been planting. There is a particular kind of pain that haunts the hard-working person who cannot understand why their efforts yield so little. You wake before dawn. You labor through the day. You sacrifice your time, your energy, your very youth upon the altar of productivity. And yet, when you look at your life, the harvest is meager, disappointing, sometimes devastatingly poor. This is the confusion of the unconscious gardener, the one who tills the soil with tremendous effort, but pays no attention to what they are actually planting. We search for explanations outside ourselves, desperate to locate the source of our barren fields anywhere but within our own minds. We blame the economy, as if it were an unpredictable storm that randomly destroys some crops while blessing others. We point to the job market, treating it like poor soil that simply cannot support our growth. We accuse circumstances, timing, competition, even the government constructing elaborate theories about why the external world has conspired against our prosperity. But James Allen, with the penetrating clarity of a master who has seen through the illusions that bind humanity, revealed a truth that is simultaneously terrifying and liberating. The soil of the universe creates whatever you give it. It is not selective. It is not biased. It does not favor the lucky and punish the unfortunate. It simply responds, with mathematical precision, to the seeds that are dropped into its depths. The problem, Allen revealed, is what he called the hidden cause. Those invisible mental seeds you are dropping every single minute of your waking life, seeds you plant so unconsciously that you do not even recognize yourself as the sower. Every thought of inadequacy, every worry about bills, every envious glance at another's success, every fearful image of future failure, these are seeds, and they sink into the fertile ground of your subconscious mind, where they must, by unchangeable law, germinate and push upward into your physical reality. But here is the promise that transforms this terrifying knowledge into the most empowering revelation you will ever receive. Once you understand the law, you can use the law. Today you will learn how to identify these invisible poverty seeds, how to destroy them at the root, and how to plant the specific seeds of gold that force the universe, by its own unchangeable principles, to yield a harvest of riches. What you are about to learn is not a technique. It is not a trick or a shortcut or a clever manipulation of circumstances. It is the ultimate law of cause and effect, operating in the realm of mind and manifestation. This is the law that governs kings and beggars alike, the law that explains why some families rise while others fall, why some individuals seem to attract opportunity while others repel it despite equal or superior effort. James Allen did not invent this law. He simply uncovered it, dusted off the eternal truth that has always been operating beneath the surface of human affairs, and presented it with such clarity that no sincere seeker can misunderstand it. Today we enter into a pact, you and I, a sacred agreement between the one who reveals and the one who receives. In this video, you will learn the 3 stages of the mental harvest, the precise process by which you transform yourself from an unconscious scatterer of random seeds into a master gardener of your own soul. You will discover how to weed your mental garden, removing the choking growth that has been strangling your prosperity. You will learn the art of conscious sowing, selecting and planting the exact thoughts that produce abundance. And you will understand the cultivation phase, that critical period where patience and faith transform invisible seeds into visible fortune. By the end of this journey, You will possess knowledge that most people will never encounter, knowledge that guarantees a crop of abundance for anyone who applies it with discipline and consistency. But I must warn you of something. A revelation I will save for part 4 that may disturb everything you think you know about virtue and wisdom. There is a specific type of weed that grows in the garden of the mind, and it is extraordinarily dangerous precisely because it looks exactly like a flower. Most people water this weed daily, nurturing it with care, genuinely believing it to be a virtue, a sign of intelligence, even a mark of moral superiority. But underground, where no eye can see, this false flower wraps its roots around your wealth seeds and chokes the life out of them before they can ever break the surface. I will reveal this virtue trap, and when you see it, you will understand why so many good, intelligent, hard-working people remain poor despite doing so many other things correctly. For now, if you are ready to accept total responsibility for your harvest, I ask you to comment below with the words, "I am the sower." This is not merely a comment, it is a declaration, a covenant with yourself that from this moment forward, you will never again blame the soil for the seeds you have chosen to plant. James Allen presents a metaphor so perfect, so complete in its explanatory power, that once it takes root in your understanding, you will never see your mind the same way again. The mind, he teaches, is a garden. Not like a garden, not similar to a garden, but a garden in the truest functional sense, a living, fertile plot of consciousness where seeds are planted, where growth occurs according to fixed laws, and where harvests inevitably emerge. In his immortal work, he writes that mind is the master weaver, both of the inner garment of character and the outer garment of circumstance. Consider the weight of those words. Your mind weaves two garments simultaneously, who you are on the inside and what happens to you on the outside. These are not separate processes governed by different laws. They are one continuous weaving, one unbroken act of creation that moves from the invisible threads of thought to the visible fabric of reality. Now consider what happens to a garden that is left untended. Does it remain pristine, waiting politely for the gardener to return with instructions? Of course not. A neglected garden becomes overrun with weeds. The most aggressive, most persistent, most destructive plants take over, choking out any possibility of beauty or nourishment. They require no cultivation. They need no conscious effort. They simply grow, relentlessly and automatically wherever they are allowed to grow. The mind operates identically. An unguarded mind does not remain neutral, does not stay empty, does not wait in peaceful blankness for direction. An unguarded mind grows weeds of poverty, fear, doubt, and resentment. These mental weeds require no effort on your part. They grow automatically in the soil of unconsciousness, and they produce their inevitable harvest of lack and limitation. This is why so many people who consider themselves positive, who believe they have good intentions, who feel they deserve prosperity, still find themselves struggling with scarcity. They have not understood that the mind must be consciously cultivated. Positive intentions are not enough. Vague desires for wealth are not enough. Even hard work in the external world is not enough if the garden of the mind is being overrun by weeds while the gardener is busy elsewhere. Allen teaches that you must take up the tools of conscious cultivation, the hoe of awareness, the trowel of discernment, the watering can of deliberate focus, and you must tend your mental garden with the same dedication that a farmer tends the fields upon which their survival depends. Because in truth your survival does depend on it, not just your financial survival, but the survival of your dreams, your potential, and the magnificent harvest you were born to reap. Every thought you think is a seed. This is not poetry. This is not metaphor stretched beyond its useful limits. This is a precise description of how consciousness interacts with the creative medium of the universe. Every thought that passes through your mind, whether you choose it deliberately or allow it to drift in from the chaos of your environment, sinks into the subconscious mind like a seed sinks into soil. And once planted, that seed must produce after its own kind. This is the law. A thought of fear planted today must eventually push upward as a circumstance of fear made manifest. A thought of lack planted this morning must eventually break through the surface as an experience of lack in your tangible world. There is no escape from this law, no exemption. no special circumstance that allows poverty thoughts to produce prosperity results. The subconscious mind does not evaluate the seeds you plant. It does not say, "This is a bad seed. I will refuse to grow it." It does not protect you from your own poor gardening. Like the soil of the earth, it is completely impartial, completely obedient, completely responsive to whatever is given to it. Plant corn, you get corn. Plant weeds, you get weeds. Plant thoughts of prosperity, service, and confidence. You get circumstances of prosperity, service, and confidence. Plant thoughts of worry, victimhood, and inadequacy. You get circumstances that validate and expand those very thoughts. The soil does not care. The soil only responds. And this is perhaps the most important truth you must absorb before we proceed further. The universe is not working against you. It is not punishing you. It is not testing you. It is simply reflecting you with absolute accuracy, multiplying and returning whatever seeds you drop into its infinite creative potential. Consider how this realization shifts the entire framework of your life. If your circumstances are a harvest and your thoughts are seeds, then your poverty is not an injustice, it is an agriculture. Your financial struggles are not evidence that the world is unfair. They are evidence that you have been farming poorly in the fields of your own mind. This sounds harsh, and many will resist it because it removes every comfortable excuse, every external villain, every easy target for blame. But what looks like harshness is actually the greatest gift you could ever receive. Because if your poverty is an injustice imposed from outside, you are helpless. If your poverty is an agriculture managed from inside, you are powerful. The moment you accept responsibility for your mental seeds is the moment you reclaim authority over your harvest. This is why Alan calls the mind the master weaver. Not a weaver, but the master weaver. It holds supreme authority over both the inner garment of your character, who you are, what you believe, how you respond to life, and the outer garment of your circumstance, your wealth, your relationships, your opportunities, your experiences. The weaving is continuous and cannot be stopped. Every moment you are weaving, every thought is a thread being added to the fabric. The only question is whether you will weave consciously, selecting threads with care and intention, or whether you will weave unconsciously, allowing whatever threads drift within reach to become part of your garment. The unconscious weaver creates a tangled, ugly, uncomfortable garment and then wonders why life feels so wrong. The conscious weaver creates a garment of beauty, abundance, and purpose, and wears it into a world that responds accordingly. Let this truth penetrate beyond intellectual understanding into the very core of your being. You are not separate from your circumstances. You are the author of your circumstances. The garden of your mind is not one factor among many. It is the first cause, the primary determinant, the hidden root system from which all visible results grow. Tend this garden and everything changes. Neglect this garden, and no amount of external effort will ever compensate for the weeds growing silently beneath the surface of your life. James Allen discovered this truth through years of contemplation and observation, and he offered it to humanity as the key that unlocks the mystery of human fortune and misfortune alike. Today you hold that key. The question now is whether you will use it to unlock the door to your own abundance. There is a reason why mathematics holds such authority in human affairs. When an engineer calculates the load-bearing capacity of a bridge, we trust our lives to that calculation. When a physicist determines the trajectory required to land a spacecraft on a distant planet, we accept the mathematics as infallible. 2 + 2 = 4. It is never 5. It is never 3. It is never approximately 4 or 4 under certain conditions. It is absolutely, rigidly, eternally 4 without exception, without negotiation, without the slightest possibility of variation. This mathematical rigidity is not seen as cruel or limiting. It is seen as reliable, trustworthy, the very foundation upon which all technological civilization is built. James Allen teaches us that the laws governing the mind and its harvest are equally rigid, equally absolute, equally without exception. This concept disturbs people because we want to believe that the universe makes allowances. We want to believe that our good intentions count for something even when our thoughts are poor. We want to believe that hard work in the physical realm can compensate for chaos in the mental realm. We want to believe that we are special cases, that the normal rules do not quite apply to our particular situation, that somehow, somewhere, there is flexibility in the law. But Alan destroys these comfortable illusions with the precision of a surgeon removing a tumor. The universe does not make allowances. The harvest law operates with the same mathematical exactness as the law of gravity. Drop an object, it falls. Plant a thought, it grows. There is no court of appeals, no exemption office, no loophole for the sincere but undisciplined. Consider the equation of poverty. A thought of lack plus a thought of worry equals poverty. It cannot equal wealth. It is physically, metaphysically, absolutely impossible. You cannot add negative values and get a positive result. You cannot plant thorns and harvest figs. You cannot think poverty and attract prosperity. The mathematics do not work. They have never worked. They will never work. And all the wishing, hoping, praying, and demanding in the universe cannot change this fundamental equation. This is not pessimism. This is liberation, disguised as limitation. Because once you accept the rigidity of the law, you realize that you can use the law. You do not need luck. You do not need connections. You do not need to be born into the right family or discover the right opportunity. You need only to change the variables in your mental equation. If a thought of lack plus a thought of worry equals poverty, what would a thought of abundance plus a thought of confidence equal? The answer is not mysterious. The answer is mathematically predetermined. Prosperity, achievement, harvest. The same rigid law that has been producing your poverty will produce your wealth once you give it the correct variables. The universe does not discriminate between people. It discriminates between equations. It does not favor the wealthy because they are special. It favors them because they are running prosperity equations in their minds. It does not punish the poor because they are unworthy. It simply responds to the poverty equations they unknowingly calculate every single day. The playing field is more level than you ever imagined, not at the level of circumstances, but at the level of mental causation. This is what Alan means when he speaks of the lawfulness of existence. Nothing happens by accident. Nothing occurs without cause. Every condition you experience, every circumstance you encounter, every result you receive can be traced back to a mental cause that preceded it. There are no victims in a lawful universe, only unconscious creators who do not recognize their own creative power. The man who loses his fortune did not lose it by bad luck. He lost it because somewhere, somehow, he planted the thoughts that made that loss inevitable. The woman who builds an empire did not build it by good fortune. She built it because she consistently ran equations of confidence, service, and prosperity until the mathematics produced their inescapable result. This is not blaming the unfortunate or praising the successful. This is simply acknowledging the law. You cannot cheat the harvest. This phrase should be written in letters of fire across the sky of your consciousness. It is the most important boundary you will ever understand. Every attempt to get rich while thinking poor, to succeed while expecting failure, to harvest abundance while planting scarcity is an attempt to cheat the harvest. And it never works. It has never worked. It will never work. Temporary gains acquired in contradiction to your dominant thoughts will always be taken away, just as a harvest grown in soil that doesn't support it will always wither. The universe has mechanisms for correction that operate beneath conscious awareness. You can force results in the short term through sheer effort, but if those results do not match your mental equations, they will dissolve like morning mist when the sun of time reveals the true harvest. This is why so many people experience cycles of boom and bust, success and failure, gaining and losing. They achieve something through effort, but because their fundamental mental equations have not changed, the mathematics eventually correct the anomaly. The universe is not cruel in doing this. It is simply lawful. It is maintaining the integrity of the cause and effect relationship that makes all creation possible. If effects could be divorced from causes, if harvests could appear without seeds, if results could manifest without mental equations, the entire structure of reality would collapse into chaos. The reliability of the law is what makes your power possible. Because you can rely on it, you can work with it. Because it never changes, you can learn its patterns and use them. Because it is rigid, it is trustworthy. So here you stand at the crossroads of understanding. Behind you is a life of unconscious planting, of random equations, of harvests that seemed arbitrary, but were actually mathematically precise responses to the seeds you dropped without awareness. Before you is a life of conscious cultivation, of deliberate equations, of harvests you can predict because you have chosen the seeds with full understanding of what they must produce. Alan has given you the formula. The universe has provided the soil. The laws stand ready to serve whoever understands them. The only remaining variable is you, your willingness to accept the discipline of conscious thought, your commitment to running prosperity equations even when old habits pull toward poverty, your faith that the mathematics will work even before you see the physical results. This is the unshakable logic upon which your entire transformation will be built. Master it, and nothing can stop your harvest. Before you can plant the seeds of gold, you must prepare the ground that will receive them. This preparation is not optional. It is not a preliminary step for beginners that advanced students can skip. It is the essential foundation without which all subsequent efforts will fail. The mental state required for successful cultivation has a name, and that name is vigilance. Vigilance is not mere awareness. It is not the passive noticing of what passes through your mind. It is active, intentional, continuous guardianship, the unwavering attention of a sentinel who knows that what passes through the gates will determine the fate of everything within the walls. You must stand guard at the door of your mind as if your life depends on it, because in every meaningful sense it does. Consider what happens when a gate is left unguarded. Anyone can enter. Enemies, thieves, and destroyers pass through as easily as friends. The space behind the gate becomes vulnerable to whatever forces happen to wander by. This is precisely the condition of the average human mind. Thoughts of all kinds drift through without inspection. Negative ideas from conversations enter without challenge. Fearful images from news reports take up residence without permission. Worried projections from past traumas plant themselves as if they have every right to grow in your sacred soil. The mind without a gatekeeper is a mind that grows whatever the wind blows in, and the wind of modern life carries mostly weeds. But you are no longer an average person. From this moment forward, you are not a passive thinker who helplessly experiences whatever thoughts arise. You are a strict gatekeeper who consciously chooses what enters the territory of your awareness. This is a radical shift in identity, not just a change in behavior. The passive thinker says, "I had a negative thought." The gatekeeper says, "A negative thought attempted to enter and I refused its passage." The passive thinker is the victim of their mental environment. The gatekeeper is the creator of their mental environment. The passive thinker wonders why life is so difficult. The gatekeeper knows exactly why their life is prospering and takes full responsibility for that prosperity. Vigilance requires energy. This is why most people do not practice it. It is easier to let the gates swing open, to allow whatever thoughts wish to enter to come and go as they please. The discipline of constant watchfulness feels exhausting to those who have never developed the mental muscles for it. But here is what you must understand. The energy you invest in vigilance is the most profitable investment you will ever make. Every poverty thought you catch and refuse at the gate is a future financial loss you have prevented. Every fear image you deny entrance is a future limitation you have avoided. Every worry pattern you break before it establishes residence is a future crisis you have eliminated before it could ever manifest. The vigilant mind does not work harder than the unguarded mind. It works smarter, investing small efforts in prevention rather than massive efforts in cure. The practice of vigilance transforms your relationship with your own thoughts. Instead of identifying with every mental visitor, you learn to observe them with discernment. A thought appears, and instead of immediately believing it, feeling it, and allowing it to influence your equations, you pause. You examine it. You ask, "Is this a seed I want to plant? Will this thought produce a harvest I desire?" If the answer is yes, you welcome it, nurture it, give it your attention and emotional energy. If the answer is no, you reject it, firmly and without negotiation, and you close the gate before it can enter your creative soil. This is not suppression or denial. It is conscious selection. You are not pretending negative thoughts do not exist. You are simply refusing to plant them in the garden where your future grows. The gatekeeper knows something that the passive thinker has never learned. Thoughts are visitors, not residents. They arrive at the gate of your awareness, but they only take up permanent residence if you allow them inside. The thought of poverty that knocks at your mental door has no power to enter against your will. The fear of failure that seeks admission can be turned away by a firm gatekeeper. These thoughts may return, may knock again and again, may seem persistent and powerful, but persistence is not the same as inevitability. A thought can knock 1,000 times, and 1,000 times you can refuse entry. Eventually, thoughts learn where they are welcome and where they are not. The poverty thoughts will seek easier gates. The fear images will find minds without guardians, and your garden will grow clear of the weeds that make other people's lives so barren. This vigilance must be maintained not only against obviously negative thoughts, but against subtly destructive ones. The blatant thoughts of fear and poverty are easy to identify. They announce themselves with emotional intensity that triggers alarm. But the truly dangerous thoughts often come disguised in neutral or even positive clothing. The worry that presents itself as prudent planning, the doubt that calls itself realistic assessment, the complaint that styles itself as righteous criticism. These thoughts slip past careless gatekeepers because they do not look like weeds. They look reasonable. They look justified. They look like exactly what a sensible person should think. But the gatekeeper knows that the appearance of a seed tells you nothing about its fruit. Only by asking, "What harvest will this produce?" can you accurately determine whether a thought deserves entry into your garden. So before we proceed to the active stages of the harvest, establish yourself in this identity of vigilance. You are the gatekeeper. You are the guardian of your own consciousness. Nothing enters without your permission, and you grant permission only to thoughts that align with the harvest you intend to reap. This is not a practice you try for a few days. This is a permanent stance you adopt for the rest of your life. The masters who achieved lasting prosperity did not achieve it through occasional vigilance. They achieved it through unbroken watchfulness, year after year, until the guarding of the mind became as natural as breathing. Begin now and never stop. The garden awaits a worthy gardener. The first stage of the mental harvest is the weeding, and it is as painful as it is necessary. You cannot plant gold in ground that is already occupied by thorns. You cannot grow abundance in soil that is strangled by the root systems of poverty. Before any positive planting can begin, you must identify and brutally eliminate the mental weeds that have been growing, perhaps for years or decades, in the garden of your mind. This is not gentle work. It requires ruthless honesty about what you have allowed to grow. It requires the willingness to rip out plants you may have been nurturing without realizing their true nature. It requires the courage to create empty space in your mind, space that may feel uncomfortable before it is filled with better seeds. The weeds you must eliminate have names you will recognize. Envy is a weed, and it is one of the most destructive. Every time you look at another person's success with resentment, every time you feel diminished by someone else's wealth, every time you wish others had less so that you might feel better about what you have, you are watering the weed of envy. And what does envy grow? Envy grows more lack. It focuses your creative energy on what others possess, rather than what you can create. It tells the universe, "I notice abundance only in others, never in myself," and the universe responds by making that observation more and more accurate. Envy must be pulled out by the root, not trimmed at the surface, but completely eliminated from your mental garden. Self-pity is another weed, and it grows lush in minds that have accepted victimhood as an identity. Self-pity says, "Poor me. Look at what has happened to me. See how unfair my circumstances are. Notice how much I have suffered." And while these statements may contain factual elements, yes, difficult things may have happened, yes, your circumstances may have been challenging, the energy of self-pity plants seeds of continued suffering. Every moment spent in self-pity is a seed planted for future pain. The universe does not hear self-pity and say, "This person deserves a break. Let me send them better circumstances." The universe hears self-pity and says, "This person is identified with victimhood. Let me reflect that identity back in circumstance." Self-pity must go, not because your struggles were not real, but because dwelling on them only creates more. The weed of unworthiness may be the most deeply rooted of all. This is the quiet conviction that you do not deserve wealth, success, or abundance. It often operates beneath conscious awareness, planted early in life by experiences or messages you may not even remember. But it grows in the dark, sending roots throughout your mental garden, touching and poisoning everything it contacts. Unworthiness creates a ceiling on what you allow yourself to receive. Even when opportunities for abundance approach, the person with deep unworthiness will unconsciously sabotage them, push them away, or fail to recognize them entirely. Unworthiness whispers, "Not for someone like me," and then wonders why prosperity always seems to flow to others. This weed must be excavated with particular care, because its roots go deep and often break off, requiring repeated removal until every trace is gone. The weeding process requires you to be extraordinarily honest with yourself. You must examine your habitual thoughts without defensive justification. When you catch yourself thinking poor, you cannot say, "Yes, but I was just being realistic." When you notice envy arising, you cannot say, "Yes, but they don't really deserve what they have." When self-pity emerges, you cannot say, "Yes, but you don't understand what I've been through." Every "yes, but" is a protection of the weed, a watering of the very plant you need to remove. The weeder does not negotiate with weeds. The weeder does not listen to the weed's argument for why it should be allowed to stay. The weeder simply removes, efficiently and completely, whatever does not belong in the garden. This elimination creates space. Empty space can feel uncomfortable to a mind accustomed to constant occupation. You may feel strange, even unsettled, when habitual thoughts are removed and nothing has yet taken their place. This is normal and necessary. A garden must be cleared before it can be replanted. The emptiness is not a problem, it is a preparation. Resist the urge to fill the space immediately with new weeds just because they are familiar. Tolerate the openness. Allow your mind to experience what it feels like to be a cleared field, ready for cultivation. In this emptiness, you will find peace you may not have known was possible, and in this peace, you will find the perfect conditions for the next stage of the harvest. The second stage is the sowing, and this is where your creative power fully engages. You have cleared the weeds, you have created space. Now you must fill that space consciously with the specific seeds you want to grow. These are what we call the seeds of gold, thoughts of prosperity, service, and ability that, when planted in the prepared soil of your mind, must produce corresponding results in your physical reality. This is not daydreaming. This is not vague, positive thinking. This is intentional agriculture of the mind, and it requires precision, intensity, and emotional engagement. The seeds of gold are specific. A seed of prosperity is not a general wish to be wealthy. It is a vivid, detailed thought of the specific abundance you intend to create. It includes images, feelings, and sensory details. It is as real in your imagination as if you were already experiencing it. This specificity matters because the creative medium of the universe responds to clarity. A vague seed produces a vague result or no result at all. A precise seed planted with exactness produces a precise harvest. When you sow, do not sow abstractions. Sow concrete images of the prosperity you are creating, the service you are providing, the abilities you are expressing. Make your mental seeds so vivid that they feel more real than your current physical circumstances. Intensity is equally crucial. You do not plant seeds of gold once and walk away. The soil of the mind requires repetition and emotional energy. A thought planted casually, without feeling, without engagement, without conviction, is a seed thrown on the surface of the ground. It may be eaten by birds, it may dry in the sun, it may never penetrate deep enough to germinate. But a thought planted with the emotion of faith, the deep feeling that what you are imagining is already accomplished, already certain, already yours, sinks into the subconscious with the force necessary to take root. Plant deep. Plant with feeling. Plant as if you were burying treasure in soil that you know will return that treasure multiplied 100-fold. The third stage is the cultivation, and this is where most people fail. often just before their harvest would have arrived. A seed does not sprout instantly. You do not plant corn today and harvest it tomorrow. There is a period of germination, a time when the seed lies in the dark soil, invisible, showing no external evidence of growth, while beneath the surface, profound transformation is occurring. The shell is cracking, the root is extending downward, the shoot is preparing to push upward toward the light. All of this happens in secret, in silence, in apparent nothing. And during this time, the unskilled gardener panics. The unskilled gardener looks at the soil and sees no result. They planted their seeds of prosperity, but their bank account has not changed. They sowed thoughts of abundance, but the circumstances of their life still look limited. And in this gap between planting and visible growth, doubt enters. Fear whispers, "It isn't working. This is foolishness. You should give up and plant something else." And tragically, many people listen to this doubt. They dig up their seeds to check if anything is happening. They abandon the cultivation process just when their harvest was preparing to break through. They start over or give up entirely, never realizing how close they were to reaping the results of their mental labor. The master gardener knows better. The master gardener understands that germination takes time and that the absence of visible results is not evidence of failure. The master gardener waters the seeds daily with patience, not anxious patience that is really disguised doubt, but genuine patience that is confident expectation. They know the law is working because the law always works. They do not need to dig up the seed to verify that it is growing. They trust the process because they understand the mathematics. The equation is correct, therefore the result is certain. The only variable is time, and time is not the gardener's enemy. Time is the medium through which seeds become harvests. During the cultivation period, you must water your seeds with expectation. Expectation is not hope. Hope contains doubt, a wish for something that might or might not happen. Expectation is certainty oriented toward the future, knowing that what has been planted must grow, as surely as 2 + 2 must equal 4. When you expect your harvest, you are not being unrealistic. You are being mathematically accurate. You are affirming the law that cannot fail. This expectation should color your daily experience, not as anxiety about results, but as quiet confidence that you are moving toward what is already certain. What happens when negative circumstances arise during the cultivation period? This is the critical test of understanding, and it brings us to the post-technique that completes the harvest process. When something goes wrong, when finances get tighter instead of better, when opportunities seem to disappear rather than multiply, the untrained mind interprets this as evidence that the cultivation is failing. But the trained mind recognizes a different truth. These negative circumstances are not new growth, they are old harvest. They are the inevitable fruit of seeds that were planted before you began your conscious cultivation, seeds that were in the ground, germinating, preparing to surface, long before you took up the gardener's tools. When you understand this, negative circumstances lose their power to derail you. Instead of seeing a financial setback as proof that your new planting isn't working, you see it as the final crop of your old planting. You harvest it without emotional attachment. You throw it away without letting it discourage you, and you say with complete conviction, "I am planting better now." This phrase becomes your shield against discouragement. It acknowledges reality. Yes, this circumstance is difficult while maintaining creative focus, but it comes from the past, and my present planting is creating a different future. Every old harvest that appears is simply one less weed in your garden, one less plant from the old seeds that needs to work its way through the system. This completes the architecture of conscious cultivation. Vigilance at the gate, weeding of the old growth, sowing of the seeds of gold, patient cultivation with expectant watering, and the wise handling of old harvests that surface during the transition period. These are not separate techniques, but one continuous practice, a way of living that transforms your mind from an abandoned lot into a productive garden. Master this architecture, and you will never again be confused about why your life looks the way it does. You will know exactly what you have planted, and you will know exactly what you will reap. Now we come to the revelation I promised you at the beginning of this journey. The weed that looks exactly like a flower, the virtue trap that has kept countless well-meaning people poor, despite their sincere efforts to cultivate prosperity. This is perhaps the most insidious of all mental weeds, because it disguises itself so effectively that people not only fail to remove it, but actively nurture it, believing they are doing something noble. This weed is complaint, but not just any complaint. It is the complaint that feels justified, the complaint that presents itself as righteousness, the complaint that masquerades as intellectual honesty or moral courage. This is the weed of justified complaint, and it may be the single greatest obstacle between you and your harvest of gold. Let me describe how this weed operates. Something happens in the world that you genuinely find unfair. Perhaps it is politics you disagree with. Perhaps it is corporate behavior that seems unethical. Perhaps it is a social trend that disturbs your sense of what is right. Your response to this unfairness feels natural, even virtuous. You complain. You criticize. You discuss the problem with others who agree with you. You feel like a person of conscience, someone who notices injustice and speaks against it. You feel morally superior to those who do not seem to care. And all of this feels like a flower, something beautiful, something valuable, something that a good person would naturally cultivate in the garden of their mind. But beneath the surface, where you cannot see, this flower is strangling your prosperity. Every complaint, no matter how justified it feels, is a seed of victimhood. When you complain, you are telling the universe a story about yourself. I am a person to whom unfair things happen. I am a person surrounded by problems not of my making. I am a person who is affected by external forces I cannot control. The universe does not evaluate whether your complaint is accurate. It does not check the facts and decide whether your sense of injustice is warranted. It simply hears the underlying message, I am a victim, and proceeds to create circumstances that match that identity. You get more things to complain about. Your sense of injustice is validated by additional injustices. Your experience of unfairness expands to fill your life. This is why some of the most socially conscious, politically engaged, and morally sensitive people struggle with prosperity, while others who seem less aware or less concerned flourish financially. It is not that the universe rewards ignorance or punishes conscience. It is that chronic complaint, regardless of its justification, plants chronic victimhood in the soil of the mind. And victimhood cannot produce abundance. It is mathematically impossible. The equation of I am a victim plus the world is unfair will never, can never, must never equal I am prosperous. The variables are wrong. The mathematics do not permit it. You can be right about every injustice you complain about and still be poor because of the complaining itself. James Allen warns us with crystal clarity that the mind that complains programs itself for poverty. The complainer has externalized their locus of power. They have said, in effect, my well-being depends on conditions being different than they are. This is the surrender of creative authority. This is the abandonment of the gardener's role. The complainer has stopped planting seeds of their own design and started simply reacting to the growth they see around them. And reaction is not creation. Reaction is slavery to external conditions. Reaction is the abandonment of the one power that could actually change those conditions. The power of conscious thought planted in fertile soil. The solution is not to become blind to injustice or to pretend that problems do not exist. The solution is to stop using problems as material for complaint and start using your creative energy for construction. Notice the unfairness if you must, but do not let it become a seed. Acknowledge the problem if it is real, but do not plant it in your garden. Instead, plant what you want to grow. Focus your mental energy on the conditions you are creating rather than the conditions you are criticizing. This is not naive positivity. This is strategic agriculture. You have limited mental energy, limited attention, limited creative power in each moment. Every unit of that power spent on complaint is a unit unavailable for construction. The wealthy know this instinctively. They do not waste their creative resources fighting against what is. They invest those resources in building what they want. The second fatal mistake is what I call double planting, and it is almost as destructive as justified complaint. Double planting occurs when you plant prosperity in the morning and poverty in the evening, abundance with one part of your mind and scarcity with another. This typically happens to people who have learned something about positive thinking but have not established true vigilance at the gates of their mind. They do their affirmations, they visualize their success, they plant their seeds of gold during their morning ritual, and then they spend the rest of the day watering weeds without even noticing. Here is how double planting commonly manifests. You wake up and affirm your abundance. You visualize the prosperity you are creating. You feel good about your planting. Then you go about your day and you watch the news and you absorb the endless stream of worry, fear, and lack that media pumps into the collective consciousness. Or you talk to friends who complain about the economy. Or you check your current bank balance and feel a wave of anxiety. Or you think about bills coming due and feel the tightening in your stomach. Every one of these experiences is a planting. By the end of the day, you have planted abundance once and scarcity dozens of times, and then you wonder why your morning affirmations are not producing results. The soil of your mind cannot make sense of contradictory planting. When you give it prosperity, followed by poverty, followed by prosperity, followed by poverty, it cannot produce a coherent harvest. The result is chaos. A life of mixed signals, inconsistent results, starts without finishes, opportunities that dissolve before they can mature. You get enough positive results to keep believing that your techniques are working, but enough negative results to keep you permanently frustrated. This is not because the law is unreliable. This is because you are confusing the law with contradictory instructions. The equation you are running is not clear, so the results cannot be clear. To eliminate double planting, you must extend your vigilance beyond your formal practice times into every moment of your day. The seeds you plant during morning meditation matter, but they matter no more than the seeds you plant at lunchtime, in the evening, during casual conversations while browsing the internet, while lying in bed before sleep. All planting is equal. The universe does not weight your intentional seeds more heavily than your casual ones. A poverty thought planted while watching the news is just as real, just as effective, just as certain to produce its harvest as a poverty thought planted during focused negative visualization. You must guard every moment, not just the moments you have designated as practice. This means making changes to your environment and your habits. It may mean dramatically reducing your consumption of news media, which is almost entirely composed of poverty, fear, and victimhood seeds presented as important information. It may mean changing the conversations you participate in, steering discussions away from complaint and toward construction. It may mean examining your relationships to determine which people water your garden and which people scatter weeds. These are not small changes, and they will require courage. But without them, you will forever be the double planter, canceling your own efforts, neutralizing your own power, confusing the very soil you are trying to cultivate. James Allen speaks with the authority of one who has seen through all illusions about human destiny. His words do not comfort the excuse-maker or soothe the self-proclaimed victim. They cut through pretense with surgical precision and reveal the absolute responsibility each person carries for the conditions of their life. Consider his declaration: "A man does not come to the almshouse or the jail by the tyranny of fate or circumstance, but by the pathway of groveling thoughts and base desires." The force of this statement should shake the foundations of every excuse you have ever made, every external factor you have ever blamed, every reason you have ever constructed for why your life is not what you want it to be. Notice what Allen is saying. The almshouse, poverty, destitution, financial ruin, is not imposed from outside. It is arrived at from inside, through a pathway of thought. Groveling thoughts, thoughts that crawl in the dirt, thoughts that demean the self, thoughts that grovel before circumstances, as if circumstances were the master and the mind the slave. Base desires, wanting without deserving, hoping to receive without willingness to give, seeking prosperity without the character foundation that prosperity requires. These inner conditions create the outer pathway. The man who arrives at the almshouse walked himself there, one thought at a time, one mental seed at a time, until the harvest inevitably matured as the poverty he experiences. And the jail, limitation, confinement, imprisonment in circumstances that trap and restrict, this too is not tyranny from outside. It too is a harvest from seeds planted within. The person who feels trapped by their job, their relationships, their city, their life, is not trapped by these external factors. They are trapped by the thoughts that created these factors and that continue to maintain them. Change the thoughts, and the trap dissolves. Plant different seeds and the walls of the jail crumble from within. This is not metaphor. This is the strict operation of mental law, and Alan understood it completely. The master gardener recognizes themselves in Alan's powerful conclusion. You are the master of your thought, the molder of character, and the maker and shaper of condition, environment, and destiny. Read those words again and absorb their full weight. You are the master, not a servant of circumstance, not a victim of environment, not a leaf blown by winds you cannot control. The master. Your thoughts are your subjects, and you rule them, or they rule you. There is no middle ground. There is no shared governance between you and your thoughts. Either you consciously select, direct, and command your thoughts, or your thoughts unconsciously select, direct, and command you. The master gardener chooses the first option and accepts complete responsibility for the result. You are the molder of character. Character is not given to you. It is built by you, thought by thought, choice by choice, seed by seed. The character that trusts in abundance or fears in scarcity, the character that expects success or prepares for failure, the character that plants gold or plants weeds, this is your creation. No one else can mold your character for you. No one else can give you the character of prosperity if you insist on cultivating the character of poverty. You mold yourself through the thoughts you entertain, the images you dwell upon, the mental postures you maintain. The character you have right now is the character you have been molding through years of unconscious or conscious thought. The character you will have tomorrow is being molded right now, in this moment, through the thoughts you are choosing. You are the maker and shaper of condition, environment, and destiny. This is the full scope of your creative power, and it is nearly unlimited. Conditions, the specific circumstances of your financial life, are made by you. Environment, the general atmosphere of opportunity or limitation that surrounds you, is shaped by you. Destiny, the ultimate trajectory and outcome of your existence, is written by you. Not written by fate, not written by God as punishment or reward, not written by society or economy or chance. Written by you with the pen of thought, on the paper of the creative medium, in the language of mental seeds that must produce their inevitable harvest. This is the master's tip that James Allen offers to all who have ears to hear. Accept total authorship of your life. Stop looking outside for the causes of inside conditions. Stop searching in the soil for problems that exist only in the seeds. Stop complaining about the harvest when you are the one who decided what to plant. The moment you truly accept this, not intellectually, but as a lived reality that changes how you think every moment of every day, is the moment your transformation begins. Before this acceptance, all techniques are temporary. After this acceptance, all techniques become powerful. The acceptance of authorship is the key that unlocks every door in the mansion of prosperity. What you have learned from James Allen today is not isolated wisdom. It is part of a great tradition, a lineage of understanding that passes from master to master across generations. And if you have studied with us at the Master's Legacy, you know that another name shines brightly in this lineage: Wallace Wattles. The connection between Allen and Wattles is not coincidental, it is complementary. They are two sides of the same golden coin, and understanding their relationship deepens your power to harvest abundance. Wattles taught us how to think in the certain way, the specific mental posture and technique that creates wealth. Allen tells us why it works, the underlying law that makes the technique effective. Consider what Wattles provided. He gave us the certain way, a method of thinking that holds the image of what we want with faith and gratitude, that acts with the intention to give more value than we receive, that moves toward riches with the confidence that comes from understanding the responsive nature of the universe. This is technique. This is method. This is the how of mental creation. And for those who practice it, it works. But technique alone without understanding is fragile. It can be shaken by doubt. It can be abandoned when results do not appear immediately. It can be confused with mere positive thinking, which is a pale shadow of what Wattles taught. James Allen provides the foundation that makes Wattles' technique unshakable. Allen explains why the certain way works. The universe is governed by rigid law. Thoughts are seeds that must produce after their kind. The mind is a garden that grows whatever is planted in it. These are not separate ideas from Wattles' technique. They are the explanation of that technique. When you hold an image with faith, you are planting a seed. When you maintain gratitude, you are watering that seed. When you act with intention, you are cultivating the soil. When you persist through apparent obstacles, you are trusting the germination process. Every element of Wattles' method finds its explanation in Allen's law. This is why studying both masters together creates compound understanding. Wattles without Allen can become mechanical, a technique practiced without comprehension, vulnerable to doubt at the first challenge. Allen without Wattles can become theoretical, an understanding of law without practical method for applying it. Together, they form a complete system, the why and the how, the foundation and the architecture, the law and the technique. The student who grasps both stands on unshakable ground. They know why they are doing what they are doing. They know it must work because they understand the law that guarantees it. Their practice is not blind faith, but informed confidence. There is another crucial connection between these masters. Allen emphasizes character as the foundation of all lasting success. Without the character discipline that Allen teaches, the vigilance, the weeding, the refusal to complain, the acceptance of authorship, the techniques of Wattles cannot be sustained. You can practice the certain way for a week, a month, perhaps even longer. But when challenges arise, when old habits pressure you toward doubt, when negative circumstances emerge as old harvests, only character will sustain your practice. A person with weak character will abandon the certain way at exactly the moment when persistence would have produced breakthrough. A person with strong character, cultivated through the disciplined gardening Allen describes, will maintain the certain way through any storm. This is why character always precedes achievement in the long run. You can sometimes achieve temporary results that exceed your character development, but those results cannot be maintained. They will eventually collapse back to the level that your character can support. The businessman who achieves success through technique but has not addressed his underlying thoughts of unworthiness will sabotage his success until it matches his self-concept. The woman who visualizes wealth but continues to complain daily will find her visualizations neutralized by her complaints. Technique without character is a house built on sand. Character with technique is a fortress built on bedrock. Allen gives you the bedrock. Wattles gives you the architectural plans. You need both to build your mansion of prosperity. Think of your journey this way. Allen teaches you to prepare the soil and remove the weeds. Wattles teaches you exactly what seeds to plant and how to plant them. Allen teaches you to guard the gate and reject poverty thoughts. Wattles teaches you what thoughts to admit and how to nurture them to full growth. Allen teaches the patience of cultivation and the trust in invisible germination. Wattles teaches the active faith that knows the harvest is certain and acts accordingly. They are not contradictory, they are complementary. They are not alternatives, they are partners. And the student who embraces both masters, who applies both sets of teachings, who develops both character and technique, will become unstoppable in their harvest of abundance. Let me tell you of a man who learned these laws the hard way, through years of suffering that were entirely self-created, though he did not know it at the time. This man owned a business and he worked harder than anyone else he knew. 18 hours a day were common. He sacrificed his health, his relationships, his peace of mind upon the altar of his business. He tilled the soil relentlessly, believing that physical effort was the key to financial success. His hands were rough from labor. His mind was exhausted from constant work. And yet, despite all this effort, the shadow of bankruptcy grew longer every year. This man planted seeds of fear constantly. He feared the economy. He feared his competition. He feared his employees would leave. He feared his customers would not pay. He feared tomorrow would be worse than today. Every waking hour, while his hands worked, his mind planted fear. While he built his business in the physical world, he destroyed it in the mental world. His thoughts were so habitual, so automatic, so invisible to his own awareness that he never connected them to his results. He thought he was thinking about business when he was actually thinking about failure. He thought he was planning for success when he was actually rehearsing disaster. The bankruptcy came as it had to come. The harvest of fear cannot be prosperity. The mathematics do not allow it. And this man, this tireless worker, this devoted entrepreneur, lost everything. His business, his savings, his sense of self. He had worked harder than most people will ever work, and the universe had returned to him exactly what he had planted, a harvest of the fear that had dominated his mental garden. The equation had been running all along, invisible, inevitable, mathematically precise. Fear plus fear plus fear equals the manifestation of what was feared. It cannot equal anything else. But here is where the story transforms. This man, in the depths of his failure, encountered the wisdom of the masters. He learned what you are learning today. And he realized with the shock of sudden understanding that he had been farming his own failure for years while believing he was farming success. His physical effort had been real. His mental planting had also been real and far more powerful. The cultivation that mattered, the seeds that produced the harvest, had nothing to do with the hours he worked and everything to do with the thoughts he thought while working. He changed nothing but his mind. He did not find a new industry, did not discover a new business model, did not work harder than he had before. He could not have worked harder. He simply changed the seeds he was planting. Instead of fear, he planted calm confidence. Instead of worry about the future, he maintained steady expectation of success. Instead of anxiety about competition, he focused on the service he could provide. He became a conscious gardener at last, vigilant at the gates, ruthless with weeds, deliberate with the seeds of gold. And he waited, with the patience of understanding, for the new harvest to emerge. Within a few years, working half the hours he had worked before, this man built a thriving empire. The outer circumstances had not changed. The same economy existed, the same competition operated, the same challenges faced any business owner. What had changed was invisible, but all-powerful, the seeds in the garden of his mind. And because the seeds had changed, the harvest had to change. The mathematics demanded it. The law fulfilled itself as the law always does. What had seemed like a mystery, why some prosper and others fail, revealed itself as simple agriculture operating in the realm of thought. This story is not unusual. It is the story of every person who has passed from poverty to prosperity, from failure to success, from lack to abundance. The details differ, but the principle is always the same. The outer harvest changed because the inner planting changed. The report card improved because the thinking improved. The circumstance transformed because the consciousness transformed. James Allen knew this truth. Wallace Wattles knew this truth. The man in this story learned this truth through painful experience. And now you know this truth as well. The question is no longer whether the law works. The question is whether you will work the law. We have journeyed together through the depths of understanding, and now we stand at the summit where all the pieces unite into one magnificent truth. You are never a victim of your bank account. Read that statement again, and let it dissolve every excuse you have ever made for financial limitation. Your bank account is not an external force imposing itself upon your life. It is not a judgment from the universe about your worth. It is not the result of economic conditions, political decisions, or cosmic unfairness. Your bank account is a report card. It is nothing more and nothing less than an accurate reflection of your past thinking, a perfect record of the seeds you have been planting in the garden of your mind. If you do not like the grades on this report card, you now know what to do. You do not argue with the report card. That changes nothing. You do not resent the report card. That only plants seeds of more to resent. You do not compare your report card to others. That activates envy, the weed that chokes prosperity. You simply change the thinking. You change the seeds. You change the equations running in the background of your consciousness. And when you change these, you change everything, not by force, not by luck, not by manipulation of external circumstances, but by law. The same law that has been producing your current report card will produce a different one once you give it different inputs. This synthesis of understanding is your ultimate power. You have the law of cause and effect operating with mathematical precision. You have the metaphor of the garden with its weeds and seeds, its cultivation and harvest. You have the vigilance of the gatekeeper, the discipline of the weeder, the art of the sower, the patience of the cultivator. You have the warning against justified complaint and double planting. You have the character foundation that sustains all technique. You have the connection between masters that compounds your wisdom. And you have the living proof that these principles work, that the inner harvest dictates the outer reality, that consciousness precedes circumstance in all cases without exception. You have everything you need. The only variable is what you will do with it. The soil of the universe is waiting for you. It has been waiting your entire life, infinitely patient, infinitely responsive, infinitely capable of producing whatever you choose to plant. This soil does not discriminate. It does not evaluate the worthiness of the gardener. It does not favor the rich over the poor, the educated over the ignorant, the fortunate over the unfortunate. It simply responds with absolute fidelity to whatever seeds are placed within it. Plant poison, and the soil will grow poison. Plant corn, and the soil will grow corn. Plant thoughts of lack, and circumstances of lack will emerge. Plant thoughts of abundance, and abundance will manifest in your physical experience. This is not belief. This is law. And the law does not require your belief to operate. Gravity does not need you to believe in it. It will operate whether you believe or not. The harvest law operates the same way. It has been operating in your life since you first began thinking. It will continue operating for as long as you exist as a conscious being. Your only choice is whether you will operate it consciously, planting with intention, or unconsciously, scattering random seeds and being confused by the results. The masters have revealed the law. The choice of how to use it belongs entirely to you. Stop fearing the future. This is perhaps the most practical command that emerges from today's teaching. Fear of the future is nothing but a poverty seed planted in the present, a guarantee that the future you fear will become the future you experience. The future is not a mysterious realm where unknown forces will do unknown things to you. The future is simply the harvest of the seeds you are holding in your hand right now, in this very moment. Look at your current thoughts. Look at the images you are entertaining. Look at the emotional tone of your mental landscape. These are the seeds. These will become the future. There is no other mechanism by which the future is created. If you are planting seeds of gold, then prepare yourself for a golden future. It is coming. The mathematics guarantee it. The law ensures it. There is no power in the universe that can prevent a properly planted seed from producing its harvest. Stop worrying about whether it will work and start working it. Throw away the seeds of lack. Drop them from your hand as you would drop burning coals. They are not worth holding for even one more moment. Every second you clutch them, they are sinking into your soil, preparing to produce the harvest you do not want. And plant the seeds of gold. Plant them deliberately. Plant them repeatedly. Plant them with the emotion of faith that knows the law cannot fail. Plant thoughts of abundance, not occasionally, but constantly. Plant images of prosperity, not vaguely, but specifically. Plant expectations of success, not hopefully, but certainly. Become the kind of gardener whose harvest is never in doubt, because the quality of their planting is never in doubt. This is your birthright. This is your power. This is the destiny you create when you finally accept authorship of your own life and exercise that authorship with conscious, disciplined, persistent intention. Prepare your barns, because the harvest is guaranteed. This is not wishful thinking. This is mathematical certainty operating in a lawful universe. The farmer who plants in spring does not wonder whether fall will bring a harvest. The farmer knows. The connection between seed and fruit is not a matter of hope, but a matter of law. You are that farmer. Your mind is the field, your thoughts are the seeds, and your circumstances, your finances, your opportunities, your entire life is the harvest that must, by unchangeable law, emerge from what you have planted. Prepare for abundance, because abundance is what conscious, disciplined planting produces. The universe is not uncertain about this. Only you are uncertain. And your uncertainty is itself a weed that must be pulled if your harvest is to reach its full potential. Now I offer you a challenge, and this challenge is the bridge between understanding and transformation. Understanding without application is entertainment. Transformation requires action, and action begins with a single step. Here is your step. The Seed Inspection Challenge. For the next 24 hours, treat every thought as if it were a physical seed you are holding in your hand. Do not let thoughts pass through your awareness unexamined. Do not allow the automatic planting that has characterized your unconscious life. Instead, catch each thought at the gate. Hold it up to the light of awareness and ask yourself one question before allowing it to pass. Do I want to eat the fruit this thought will grow? This question transforms your relationship with your own mind. It makes visible what has always been invisible. It exposes the seeds you have been planting without knowing you were planting them. When a thought of worry arises, hold it up. Do I want to eat the fruit this thought will grow? The fruit of worry is more things to worry about. Do you want that? When a thought of envy arises, hold it up. Do I want to eat the fruit this thought will grow? The fruit of envy is the experience of lacking what others have. Do you want that? When a thought of complaint arises, hold it up. Do I want to eat the fruit this thought will grow? The fruit of complaint is victimhood and powerlessness. Do you want that? If the answer is no, and it will be no for most of the thoughts you catch, throw the seed out immediately. Do not negotiate with it. Do not allow it partial entry. Do not say, just this once. Throw it away and reach for a better seed. Reach for a thought of abundance, a thought of confidence, a thought of gratitude, a thought of service. Plant that instead. And do this every single time for 24 hours without exception. By the end of this challenge, you will have accomplished something remarkable. You will have experienced conscious gardening. You will know what it feels like to choose your seeds deliberately rather than scattering them randomly. And you will have begun the process of transformation that leads inevitably to a new harvest. The masters have done their part. James Allen poured his wisdom into words that cross centuries to reach you today. Wallace Wattles provided the techniques that turn understanding into practice. These teachings have been preserved, transmitted, and now delivered to you in this very video. The lineage has held. The wisdom has survived. The opportunity is before you, as ripe as it has ever been for anyone in human history. You have access to knowledge that kings would have paid fortunes to possess, that empires have risen and fallen without, that most of humanity will never encounter. The question is not whether the wisdom is sufficient. The question is whether you are. If you are ready, truly ready, to stop reaping weeds and start harvesting a fortune, then the path is clear. Subscribe to the Master's legacy and continue your education in the timeless principles that transform lives. This is not just a channel, it is a school, a lineage, a community of those who have chosen to become master gardeners of their own souls. Every video plants seeds. Every teaching waters growth. Every principle strengthens character. The masters speak through this channel, and their voice can guide you from poverty of any kind to prosperity in all dimensions. Become the master gardener of your life. You have the knowledge, you have the law, you have the technique, you have the challenge to begin. The soil is waiting, the seeds are in your hand. The future is not written in the stars, it is written in your thoughts. Write wisely, plant deliberately, cultivate patiently, and prepare for the harvest that must, by unchangeable law, arise from the garden of your awakened mind.